Hey, Honey Wash Day. This is Toksa Hour. I am Maggie Ross, and I am live from Porcupine, South Dakota, along the Porcupine Creek for the Porcupine Drum. This morning is Mother's Day. We celebrate this every year in May. So happy Mother's Day to everybody out there. And today, my special guest is Carolyn New Holy. I asked her if she would be interested in coming and talking about Mother's Day. We'll talk about maybe our own mothers, maybe being a mother, and then being grandmothers, or however this conversation takes us. Good morning, Carolyn.
Good morning.
I feel like I'm deaf. Really um hard hearing or something. I saw on TikTok there's this thing that you can get and you put your phone on it and it enhances the sound.
uh,
That's what I need to get for my laptop. Shit.
I know.
Put my laptop on it, make it real loud. So how have you been?
Good. Busy as usual. Busy doing all kinds of stuff.
Seems like the It seems like every season does that, huh? Like at the
Hmm.
beginning, like you're really busy, got to get things done, and um, then it's like then as the season ends, you're getting ready for the next season and trying to get all that stuff done. And I find myself,
That's why I
and even
said
in that,
the older we get too, I think we're having to catch up to the season. Like I
I
still
know,
can't believe it's in what is it? The beginning of May and all the leaves are coming. I think they kind of came out early though, because usually they don't, that we don't see the leaves till what about now, but now, I think a couple of weeks ago in mid-April, they already came out. So I was like, wow, that's kind of early. So, but I think it's the
yeah,
changing seasons too. To like we were talking about gardening and trying to get that going. So I was saying I didn't even put my seeds in yet. I gotta do that sometime this week too. So that's why I said I thought it's meeting one deadline and then on to the next again.
I know. Then you have your own work, right? Being in education, like everyone's wrapping up a season of a semester or academic year. Students are
Hmm.
getting ready to graduate, so you got graduations going on. Geez,
Yes,
everyone just running around.
I know.
I think that's gonna be me in 2 years. My son will be graduating high school, so I'll be running around like that too. Like, hopefully not too bad. Hopefully I'm like a better planner, right? And I do all those things all year long, or even start now, make sure I have all those things. But we'll see.
Oh, I know my oldest granddaughter is going to graduate eighth grade in 2 years too. So I thought every time they do stuff like that, it's like, I'll be ready. Not even. Never ready yet. Always last minute. Just
I
like
know
with beadwork.
I gotta get ready for Ishnati too. My granddaughters
Oh,
like,
wow.
geez,
Exciting.
a lot of stuff.
Hmm. Well, I think that's kind of
I
a
think
good guidance
when
for,
you're
good guidance for
yeah,
young women that are going through that ceremony because I think it grounds them more and it kind of, you know what I mean? It kind of the values and all those are being passed on because I know in one of my classes that's what one of the students was bringing up that she didn't think that the Ishnati ceremonies were going on, but I said they are, but it's not. To me, I said it's not a public um, type of ceremony where it's done out in the public and everybody, you know what I mean? I said it's mostly when they do those kind of ceremonies, it's mostly family Tiwahe and the Tiwashpayas that come together and help that young lady. I said, but it's not really where, it's public and you invite everybody and everybody shows up like that. I said, it's mostly the family that show up and um, witness that ceremony. So I said, the families are still doing them, but it's just not as public. So I
Yeah,
guess
it's not like we do a big old thing at the Civic Center, huh?
I know. So I said, they're still being done. And then that throwing of the ball, I said, I heard of people doing it to families, but I said, I haven't actually ever witnessed one. Did you?
No, but I know they do 'em.
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna go one year. They were doing one at Bear Butte, and it was some of my relatives. They were doing that, and I was going to go, and I don't remember something came up um that didn't let me go, so I didn't go. And then they never did it again. It's like because a lot of times, like it's a one once thing, right? Like the one family is gonna do that for a reason,
Mm-hmm.
then it's done. So you come to like girls, you come into your time once. I mean, you do it every month, but like that one when you first come into it, it's like a big change of what happens, right? Like your body changing and
Mm-hmm.
so then you're like you're new now. You're not the same.
Mm-hmm. So I
And I don't
guess
know how to
I'll,
talk about it either.
yeah. Well, I
Just
think
use
it's
all
the
kinds
one.
of language.
I think one. I mean, I think that's the ceremony that really needs to come back so we don't lose it for the coming generation, so that we have the ones that go through that ceremony can pass that on to their or even the relatives that witness that can do that for their relatives too. So I'm kind of like I was talking about procrastination. So I kind of missed out with my own children as a mother. I guess I'll introduce myself. My English name is Carolyn New Holy, and my Lakota name is Oyoki Pikakawi, which just I have a hard time translating it, but um, like the exact translation. But basically, it means that I bring happiness to people, I guess. And I was named by um, my kaka, my grandfather, and my lekshis that were part of a drum group, our singing that was called White River Drum Group, and I guess I was given that name when I was 2 years old, and I don't really remember. But anyway, that's my Lakota name. I come from the Little Grass Creek and the White River communities here in Oglala District, and I come from the Itashita and the Shikshitala Tioshpaye, doing a lot of research on family tree. That's one thing that I really want to leave for my children, my grandchildren, and my great grandchildren, so that they know where they come from. And I don't know what band. I should know that, but my ate comes from the Sitting Bull band, so there's a lot of in Oglala district in the um, that corner, western northwestern corner. We have um, a lot of families that are from Standing Rock. So I can't remember what his band is called, but on my father's side, and then on my mother's side, a little bit of Si Changhu's. I used to really make Si Changhu good jokes, but I don't do that anymore after I found out that my my Ina comes from the Si Changhu part of that too, from the family tree. So been doing a lot of research. I haven't really done a lot. I mean, haven't really worked on that part because it's so huge. I mean, the amount of research that goes into that. But as mothers, I would encourage you to really research your family tree and know tally your children and grandchildren, your great grandchildren, who they're related to, where they come from, and which bands. Because here on Oglala, I mean, we're from all over, but generally you should be a part of the Iteshita or the Kiyuksa. Those were the two bigger bands. Or you could be part of other bands from other reservations too, because we're kind of all mixed up here and there. So when the IRA government started, so I just kind of wanted to say that. And like I said, I really didn't do a lot of those ceremonies with my. I did the hunka and I did the naming for my children, but and they're all. I have Tekpa's boys, Justin and Dustin, Chubby and Sunny. Everybody knows them by Chubby and Sunny instead of their real names. And then I have my daughters, the youngest, Stormy Rain. And so I did naming and hunka ceremonies, and they're all dancers. And I have a hunka daughter, Maggie, her many horses. I have three grandchildren, Takoja, Wichintal, or yeah, Wichintala. Well, one's now a Wikoshkalaka. Two Wichintalas, one on the way on August, first part of August somewhere. And then I have two Takoja Hukshilas. And then when one of my Tojans, before I was 30, she made me a grandma in Lakota ways. A lot of people always ask, how do you feel about being an unchi? And I was an unchi long time ago. So I'm kind of used to that role, I guess. So I just want to, because as women, I always say that you honor your tiwahe, whatever teachings that you learned or, always learn along the way. And I've always, things that my Ina told me that I still carry on today. And then what I've learned along the way from my twins after my passed away, some from my aunties, my konshis. So just passing on those teachings and really trying to pass on the values like the Ishinanti. We had one for my oldest Takoja girl 2 years ago. So I didn't really know what I was doing, but I did the best that I could. So I think as Inas, as mothers, that's what we do. Sometimes you don't know what you're doing, but just do the best that you can do, and your children will always appreciate all the hard work that you do for them, because even though we say it's our day, we're still being we're still playing that role of mother. So we don't really get to relax. We just, do a lot of that hard work, like we're talking about gardening. So trying to trying to be self-sustainable in your home, providing that for your tiwais. So there's a lot of strong values and teachings that go into being a mother, grandmother. I just really enjoy being a unchi because I can spoil them and send them back. And a lot of times, and you help with the discipline of the, well, not really the discipline, but the teachings of those values of how to conduct yourself, your behavior when you're out in public, all those things that go into teachings. And always tell my students in my classes, even though today we live in modern day houses, the teacher represents what's above and what's below, what we do above, what they do above in the Star Nation, what we do here reflect in our ceremonies. I said, even though you live in, a square house, that still represents your teacher and the values that go with it. So I said, still treat it like it's the teacher. I said, like when guests come to your home, how do you treat them? Where do you see them? You don't ask them if they're hungry, you just feed them. I said, those are the values. And then I always teach them about kinship, kinship, how we value kinship. And that connects back to everything that we do as Lakota people. So, whatever you, if you want to say it. Yeah, okay. I said, let me talk. I'll be talking forever.
Quit. You know, one of the things I often think about, like in language, I was just reading about in a book about how this person had been confronted, like, do you guys still live in teepees? And they're saying no, and like trying to break from that stereotype. And then it made me think about back when I was on Facebook, there were some like Facebook, I don't know if it was a YouTube video or whatever, but a whole group of young people that were making like breaking stereotypes or things like that as being Lakota, modern day Lakota. And that was one of the things that was in there, is that we do not live in teepees anymore. Like, we don't live in that. And um, one time I had this conversation, and I don't know if it's appropriate to do this, but forgive me, Gilma. Don't get mad at me, Gilma. But I was talking to Gilma Stans, and she said that that bothered her too, because like a teepee is a dwelling, so a modern day house would still be considered a teepee. So you do live in a teepee. And so she said, I saw that video and I just had a hard time with that. And I wanted to just say something to them, but it was a video. So I just said it, and so I think there's some of that stuff, like how we use language, and the misconceptions ourselves with language, like when we think about that. But how do we then keep our homes, and how do we, like, those are big responsibilities for women. Um, just back, like they talk about, our ancestor grandmothers and mothers, they all they owned that, it was their home. And so they took the responsibility of it. And sometimes I think, and I don't know, maybe it's a colonization thing, because we don't get to own our own home, right? Like, we're forced to live within family, within family, within family. So then we lose that identity of a homeowner,
Mhm.
because there's no homes being built. And a long time ago, there would be a collective effort to go build homes for each other. So when a father knew, or a brother knew, or an uncle knew, or a grandfather knew that their sister relative or their female relative was going to go into that place now and needed a home, then they went and got her all the things that she was going to need to have her own home. And so
Mhm.
I've been thinking about that. Like, we don't do that. We don't, we don't help each other in that way. And I don't know, I understand that there's a lot of kind of colonialism that we're still dealing with historical trauma, generational trauma, even current present trauma.
Mhm.
And so those might be the barriers for why we don't do that for each other, or we don't help each other, um, help our sisters, or help our, daughters or whatever, have their own home. So we all just settle that we're going to have 5 families in this home.
Mhm.
So sorry, I went off on a tangent with that.
That's okay. That kind of, and it's kind of difficult too, I think, because one of the teachings that my Ina always told me, like growing up, and it wasn't like how would you say that they would this is how you're supposed to do things or whatever. She just kind of um talked or whatever. So I would, well, when I was younger, I said, think we all do that. I said sometimes when they talk about the same things, it's like it goes one in one ear and out the other. Oh, I'm not listening to this. Or you're talking about the same thing. But one of the things she used to always say, as a woman, one of your responsibilities was to provide your own, what you're gonna cook with and all of that stuff. And so I always encourage that, because I don't know about you, but I always have my own favorite skillet that I would, use to cook certain foods and all of that stuff. And so that's one thing that she always said was when you have a home, provide for your own utensils and whatever you're going to cook with. So that's one of the things as, as women that we're responsible to, um, for our, whatever is in our kitchen is what, what is ours. So we have to provide for our families and providing them good meals and all of that stuff too. So, um, I think I think remember I was asking you, how do you dry corn? So I said I'm learning too. So stuff like that, like the dried corn, and I thought that one time I forgot I forgot to time them in the oven, and I threw them in the oven and I forgot about them. So I thought one side got all burnt, but the other side was okay. So I said, oh well, it's dried corn, so they won't mind. So anyway, stuff like that. You can learn, traditional ways of preparing a lot of the foods that we do, or a lot of times people use modern ways to prepare those types of foods. So even learning that as women, how to make the different wasnas. I think we have, what is it, four wasnas: the corn wasna, the choke cherry, the champa wasna, and then the choke cherry and dried meat, papa wasna. And I can't remember what the other one was. I know there's four of them, but so things like that, to get those stuff, the rock and the flat rock, and some people use blenders, and however that works for you, and what are the ingredients that you have to prepare to use those. I mean, to make those traditional foods like that. So even with as young women are growing up, teaching them how to where to go to gather berries, and then if you're growing corn, to dry that corn that way. I tried to was it this past summer? I tried to dry some choke cherry patties, and I put them on top of the car and the car hood, and that wamini came and just blew it off. So the dogs got into them and ate about half of them. So I was chasing the dogs around next. Just things like that. You live, you learn. And challenges. But a lot of times, you try to improve on whatever, and even that sewing, sewing a lot of times, um, ribbon skirts, or your stark quilt or whatever. Somebody will give you a tip, talking to people, and they'll say, "Well, I do this, or I use this, or whatever." So then, and even beading, I do a lot of beading, so. I find different when I've been adjusting. I just made what do they call those, turtle amulet for a baby shower, for she's due next month. So I did it all leather, so I thought it tore up my fingers, and I was like, what design? They said purple shades and pink shades, so I made it like that. But it's all it's how would you say that, they're not from your family, so you really don't know what their designs are, you know what I mean? So each family, kind of has designs that come through their dreams and stuff. And so you kind of have to take that into consideration too when you're doing beadwork. And a lot of times I'll be sitting there beading and listen to YouTube videos, and then if I don't focus, I make mistakes. So then I have to go back and take it apart again. So it really teaches you patience and, focus. And when you're not really focused, I thought you make mistakes all kinds of ways. So, and even sometimes I make mistakes, like I saw Thomas be getting colorblind. I said I thought I mixed up my dark blue with my or navy blue with my black beads. And the way afterwards I found it, but I was like, oh wow, I'm just gonna leave it like that, because sometimes when we do beadwork, leaving those mistakes like that, it's just that if somebody asks, we always say that's part of life too, because as humans, we make mistakes, and then we learn, and then we move on again. So I try to explain that way. Um, and then one of my mushkes was teasing me. I thought she said, you tell them that um, you found the beads on the ant hill. she was saying that. So I said, gee, I don't even I didn't even see no ants anywhere. I said, long time ago, growing up, I said, you find all these ant hills and you do find a lot of beads and you wonder where they find these beads, right? And how they put them in their on their ant hill. But anyway, yeah, when was that Friday? Yeah, I saw a big old black ant on my porch. I was saying no ants. I thought they all came visiting. I said, so, but so even that, noticing a lot of being aware of how our environment is really changing from like when I grew up too. So I was teasing my students. I said, thought when I grew up, I said we had no electricity, no running water, and all that. So I said we learned how to live without it. And I said during the day, summer, I said we just went out and we stayed out all day and we ate, whatever. I said the only thing, I said my friend was trying to make me eat bird eggs. I was like, no, I'm not eating no bird eggs. I said we find food along the way and we eat those. And then I said they always tell us, come back before the sun goes down. You we look and that sun's already touching the horizon or whatever. I thought we're running back towards the house and they're hollering for us. I thought we're trying to make it back before the sun actually goes down the. So I said those were those times. I said, and we rode our bikes. I said we'd be gone all day. Our horses. I said we didn't have saddles, so we would ride bareback. But I said we entertained ourselves. I said we didn't wait for our parents to do this. And I mean, we did our chores and stuff too, but I said we were gone all day and then we came home in the evening. So that's how we spent our summers. I said, if we get cut off on all this modern technology, I said, how are you guys going to survive? Be sitting there looking at each other.
I say that too. It's like, we didn't have a lot of toys and things like that, We, like the things that I remember, like we had paper dolls.
Mm-hmm.
And then so you really took special care to take care of them. And we didn't have like just didn't have it. So we used the environment.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember using sticks, building towns and using sticks as
Mm-hmm.
figures. And a stick could be a doll or a person, and it could be a car, and it could be put together and made like a makeshift house, or you could do all kinds of things with it, and just using your imagination. And so I I struggle with it because like I really made my grandkids, I made them play outside.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, like take your devices, or you don't even have devices or whatever, but I'd make them play outside. It's not safe to let them go too far away, so they'd have to just be right around here. But
Mm-hmm.
because now like people steal you, just
Mm-hmm.
be down on the road and get stolen or something. So
Right.
like I have to explain all of that stuff to them. And but the nighttime thing we still do. So even if they're over at my mom's, if it's dark, yeah, before it gets dark or whatever, you need to go home.
Mm-hmm.
And so if they don't come back, then I'll go over and walk them back, or my son will go over and walk the granddaughters back. Or I'll walk with them over if they forgot something over there. I'll walk with them over there and walk with them back. But really, trying to reinforce that, like when it's dark out, you need to be inside,
Mm-hmm.
should not be outside. And then just having the imagination to create instead of because this is one of the things that I see, like we have a lot of trash
Mm-hmm.
because everything's made of plastic. So then all the ramifications and consequences of plastic we're dealing with today. Nothing lasts forever. And so I think about that. Gee, we just played with sticks and rocks, and
Mm-hmm.
we did, so there wasn't a lot of that pollution.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
I said even so I don't let my when my children were growing up, I never let them litter on the road. I always tell them put it in a bag and dispose of it in the trash. So I said one thing that's I told him that I said one thing that I'm trying to teach you is to how do you say that, not to really trash and then leave your trash around the around the house and stuff. And so even keeping your home clean, I said, but even the outside of it, I said. And I was taught, I don't know who I learned it from, so I tell my students that, and some of them are kind of they don't, they don't grow up with stuff like that, and then they'll say like I wasn't raised traditional. So I said that's kind of like how you were talking about colonization. Sometimes we use words in that sense. So I said growing up I was always, I don't mind, but I said it feels like we categorize each other, you know what I mean, by words in a. And so I said I was always the full blood, and I was always the traditional, and probably being called a backward Indian and all that, or the dark skinned girl, all that. I said, doesn't really bother me, but I said, I feel like we, as indigenous people, we categorize each other like that. You know what I mean? So it kind of separates people, and then we have that hate towards each other, and we don't recognize each other as just being a nahi. We're just here on a really very short journey to um Jimaka, so do the best that you can, and always tell them be a good relative, but also recognize that some of our relatives are toxic. So those, let them do their journey and whatever, because you can help them all you want, but I said they're gonna still do whatever they're gonna do, and we have addictions, all of that stuff. And so I said sometimes when we can't, I mean, we can try to help them, but the best thing we can do is just pray for them. We can't really change their path because that's the path they chose. I said, so you live your life. And so that's what I've always tried to do, is just live my life and let people live their lives, and I really worked on my gossip and my anger. So I really don't, and then the times that I do, hey, there's this whatever, and then it's gossip. So I was like, oh, okay, I see, I can't got pulled into that gossip thing. I'm not listening to no or they say, did you hear? And I'm like, I'm probably the last person to hear anything because I don't really gossip, so I don't know what's going on. And then the anger part of it too. I said I really had to really work on that. I said I used to really react with anger a lot, but I said I think I'm doing a lot better now. I try to take a deep breath and just it's not that big of a deal, or because I think my family saw me like that a lot of times. Even if somebody gets my um fast food order wrong, I thought I'll be going off on them. So I really worked hard on that. So as women, I think we're really, when you mention historical trauma and generational trauma, I think as women, as leaders in our, because we are leaders, that's the colonization perception of saying that women have no voice. We always had a voice. We always, in our Tiwahe, we helped with the decision making. So we were always in that leadership role too. And today, I think a lot of the women do carry on the leadership, but the men still have to step up and start with these um, their leadership, their roles, their what they contribute in the Tiwahe. I heard a story, and this is so true. A lot of people say, we're not having accountability, and I heard a story about a in-law that, or a father-in-law that kept telling his son-in-law not to be abusing his daughter, but he kept doing it. So on the fourth time that he did it, he told him, he said, he invited him to his camp, and he said, come over and eat. And so he fed him, and he told him, he said, I told you 4 times not to abuse my daughter, but you keep doing that. So he said, I'm feeding you because I'm going to send you back. He said, I'm going to kill you. So those were the accountability measures. So people knew he was set as an example. So in that camp, nobody probably ever did that again. And so those were the harsh consequences a long time ago. So you knew your role in that circle and you didn't do those things. And because the consequence could be death, or they could come and take rip apart your teeth, yeah, your teeth, they could kill your favorite horse, or they could banish you from camp. And so those were probably we would today consider extreme. But if when people talk about accountability, those were the structures that we as Lakota people followed a long time ago before the IRA government. And then the IRA government came and just kind of um, because the U.S. government knew these structures were working for us, they had to take that away. They had to take our food source away. They had to take our resources away, our land, everything to destroy us. I always tell my students, we're always fighting a war. Even today, I said, you guys are gonna, going forward, you're gonna have to learn how to fight back in a way that our generations are still going to go, keep going just as we have survived all these years. Today, that generation, I say, you're going to be the generation that is going to pass on those teaching and those values. So I just thought I'd mention that. So as women, we have a very, very important role in even language, passing on the language, because language is connected to everything. Where the creator, the Wakantanka, gave us a sacred language. And as far as Lakota people go, we have a very, very unique, beautiful language. So if you have an opportunity to learn, learn one word, 2 words, just keep adding on and really try hard to learn our language.
You know, when I think about what we do as like my mother, like she um when they talk about the women are the backbone of our society, of our culture. And I think about my mother and like her strength, the things that she set example. And then like now I'm older and I think about her and then I think about where did she learn that from?
Mhm.
And then I look at my grandmother and my great grandmother and I start to think, well, where did they get that?
Mhm.
And then it just goes back and back and back. And so um I think, like a lot of times we feel like we're, like that was back then, that's long time ago. There's a disconnect, but I think there's times when we don't realize that, but we do carry it because it's in, like it that is in our mothers or that is in our fathers. Like
Mhm.
they demonstrate that and they learned it from somewhere and they learned it from somewhere. And even some, like they'll talk about boarding school, the trauma of boarding school and how they were ripped from their homes and stuff like that. And then trying to relive those things. But if we just look at like for me, boarding school is an issue in my family too. But if I think about like my great grandmother, Julie, she's the one that raised my mom. And so she was born like in the 19, 1900 or 18 something. 1890. So so those connections, I just think about like when they even talk about roots, the root system of any environment, like it's nothing you're seeing. What we see is the trees, we see the flowers, we see that, but we don't see the interconnectedness of the root in the soil and how far that root goes down. Maybe like I'm doing this constantly, pulling out what I classify as weeds
Mhm.
pull it out, and I dig that root out and stuff, and then it still grows
Mhm.
in the same spot. And I'm like, man, I killed that thing, and I'd be all mad, but like, gee, always just pulling this out. But then, so when I pull it up, there's probably still just a root, down at the bottom, way
Mhm.
at that bottom that's still connected. So then it still just grows up. And so I think about that, like our interconnectedness and the things that you don't see. We
Mhm.
don't see it. We physically, like you say, we physically can see each other.
Mhm.
Um, but we don't see the interconnectedness that we all have, like we share.
Mhm.
And I was thinking about this. I listen to Palestinian people quite a bit, and I was listening to these people talk about their culture in Palestine. And so these men journalists are talking, and they say the same thing, and I'm just listening to them, and they say that the women are the backbone of their society.
Mhm.
So I was listening to that. The women own everything. The women have a say in their and so to me, I'm listening to them, and they're breaking down these misconceptions that I have been taught through the propaganda of media and through even the education system, the propaganda through that, that says Muslims are bad, or these people, are bad or whatever because they're not the same as this or whatever. And so I I listened to that, and I was thinking, geez, we're probably more similar than we think, being a world away from each other.
Mhm.
The responsibilities of women.
Mhm.
I think it's just fascinating.
I think that's why in war I said the women and children are probably making that ultimate sacrifice because what are they gonna target? You know what I mean? They have to target the generation keepers and the ones that are the children that are gonna live on to represent their people. And so sadly I don't know. Um, I don't know why. Um, I mean, I know why, but it's just why do we keep having wars? You know what I mean? Why do we have to keep killing each other if we say that a lot of our cultures are supposed to be living in harmony like us? You know, the greatest thing that we can attain is Wichosani. And I'm sure these other culture like the Palestinians also have that too, but then money and greed comes into play, of course, and I think that's what's gonna probably end up destroying. I always say that those type of people are gonna end up destroying the world, and we're coming to see that now. And so I always tell my students, that's why I always tell them, be ready. And I was telling them, did you know it's safe to eat dandelions? We have a lot of dandelions. And I have a lot of dandelions in my yard. So I said, I'm going to start drying them so we could start eating them. I said, because that's the one thing we really have to prepare for is food shortage. I said, if we have food shortage, how are we going to survive? I said, the most that you can probably survive on food now is probably what, about 2 weeks. I said, and then there'll be no Walmarts, no Safeways, no grocery stores. I said, where are you gonna get your food? Where are you gonna get clean water? And so I said, you have to really think ahead and start preparing. I said, that's one of the things that our people, as we dried a lot of foods. I said, start drying the foods that you can, so you can at least feed your family. I said, and the gardens too. I said, so not to have to walk my talk. So I gotta do those do those garden seeds sometime this week. I said,
I know that's to me, like the past 2 years, I planted late. So my garden didn't really, I mean, I got tomatoes and things, but it just like my corn didn't get very tall. And I just planted too late. So I'm really, I think 2 weeks ago I planted my potatoes. I'm doing potato box again. So I planted my potatoes, And then like today I want to try to get my corn in, and I bought some tomato plants. I went to
Mm.
Sinte Gleshka's their, what do they call it? Their garden. I remember those tunnels.
Yeah.
Greenhouse, there we
Oh
go.
yeah, green.
And I went there and here they planted heirlooms, heirloom
Wow.
plants. So I bought a white tomato plant. I can't remember what it's called. So I'll have a white tomato, so I'm going to be anxious about that. I bought a cherry tomato. It's like, what do they call it? Coffee, coffee. It's not anyway, so it's like a real, it's got a chocolate color to it. And then
Mm.
I bought a chocolate tomato uh thing, and then I bought a yellow tomato, and they're just heirlooms. Like I'm like, do we have any that are just red? Do we have, can I just have a red tomato too? So I bought a mystery tomato plant. They didn't know what it was because when they were doing their seeds, there were just some stuff that was on the counter and they just kind of swept it into containers. So I have a mystery tomato plant. And then I got my peppers. I just need to get some bell peppers, and um, yesterday I bought some sugar snap. I really like, and mostly those never make it in my house because I just sit out in my garden and I eat them as they grow. They're really good. So I did that, and then I just bought a few other seeds um so I can get those into the ground. But yeah, I'm really concerned about planting too late because then it's too hot. And like today is already supposed to be like what, 90 degrees,
Yeah.
something like that. It's supposed to be really hot. So and it's already just too soon. And but last year, remember, geez, we had hail, oh, snow, wasn't it? Snow came and froze everything around this time. So then there's no blossoms on the trees, and we
Mm-hmm.
have choke cherries. I was real like I didn't realize I had so many plum trees behind my house.
Mm.
Like they're like my whole almost backyard was um just white with the plum tree blossoms.
Wow.
And so I was like, Jay, I didn't know I had that many here. Interesting. And
I
then
know.
choke cherries. Boy, the
Mhm.
choke cherries are just in full bloom. And so I'm going to also hope that they make it, because what was it? A couple years ago, man, I swear every tree here was full blown with choke cherries. I was picking choke cherries for about 4 weeks because they kind of varied, and I was glad for that some didn't ripe right away. I
So
think
one
those
thing,
things like
oh, I was gonna say one thing we really don't have is buffalo berries.
I have some.
All
I
right,
have
I'm gonna come visit you.
five buff I have five buffalo berry trees. So I had to get after a person a couple years ago because they were breaking the branches
Mm.
and they weren't even ready. And so I'm like, you could pick them. I don't mind, but they're not ready. They're not
Mm-hmm.
right. So they're not ready. And they were doing this in August, or yeah, it was August. Then they were just breaking off the branches and then taking off. And I'm like, just don't do that because you're gonna kill my trees.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I have the red and yellow.
Gee, it's really hard to find the yellow ones anymore unless you go way, way out there.
And I shouldn't even be saying that live.
I know.
Howling on myself. Everybody be over here getting my
I
yellows.
know. Your yellow buffalo berries. And then the currants too. We used to have some along the river in here. I think that's what they did too, was they kept breaking the branches, and we used to have a big old red buffalo berry patch there, and now they kept doing that, so now there's nothing that grows. Are those, remember those? something fungus or something was going through all those buffalo berries. So it had some of that on there. So now it's just shit. It's just all whatever. So dried out and everything. So I know I saw a lot of blooms all along the roads. I said, "Hey, remember where those are at? You're gonna have to come and look for plums and choke cherries and buffalo berry somewhere." But I didn't really see too much buffalo berry. I mean, probably way in the back. I thought they would catch you for trespassing.
I know. I drive back and forth from here to Rosebud, and when I'm coming back, geez, I just saw them right in that ditch area. It's like, hey, there they are, they're there. That's where I know they're at. Drew a map. This is where I will be in August and September.
Mhm.
You're looking for me, this is where I'm at. Have my whole netted outfit on treacherine ground so I don't get chiggers.
Oh, I know. That one year we got tigers. I thought we all went. I think we found a bunch of plums and choke cherries, and I think some buffalo berries way out there by White Rivers, way back there. And I thought we all got eaten up by tigers. What are those? So I said, now we know to whatever. I said, spray and whatever go out there. I said, and then that year too, I think it was mosquitoes. I
See, I know they're bad too. My aunt used to come and she'd say, "Let's go," and then we'd have our long sleeves and put rubber bands with our sleeves in place, and then the same with our pants legs. Make sure
Mm-hmm.
that we're all so we don't get chiggers. Man, that's tough when you get them.
Yes. Oh, and then the poison ivy too. Some places have poison ivy and poison oaks. I said, I don't think a lot of people know what those leaves look like either. So that one time we was picking sage and here somebody said, watch out for that poison ivy. We're at, and then it was right in the middle where all the good sage was too. So I said, who's gonna sacrifice? Who's gonna go out there? I thought you'll pass on the what do you call that poison ivy. I said, ooh, that.
I know.
Or the cactus too. Sometimes there's those big prickly cactus right where the berry bushes are. So you gotta look for. What do you call that? You have
Bee
to prepare
traps.
yourself. Yeah.
What do they call those in military when they put all those landmines? Is that what they're called? Oh,
Yeah.
what are those called?
Yeah. Landmines.
Anyways, that's nature's booby traps to you.
I know.
To you in too.
I
Don't
know.
pay attention. Gee, then you gotta watch out for snakes. You gotta make a bunch of noise and
I know.
all of that just to make sure the snakes know you're in the area so they might go away. They would do that with our tarps too, maybe shaking them around.
Take your big sticks. Take your big sticks. Gee, I know was it last Sunday we were on the road too, there was like 5 dead snakes. I was like, well, they always say that they're Ishtanga the first part of the or in the springtime when they first come out. So I thought they must have came out to the roads. I thought they were laying their dead. So I don't know what kind of snakes they were. Hopefully they're rattlesnakes. Just kidding.
I
Always.
know. How about they told me at work, they said, you got to be careful walking when you're walking over to that building from here to there. There's a bunch of holes in the grounds and those snakes peek their heads out at you. I'm like, oh my God, I'm not ever coming over here until winter.
So
No
you'll be
way, man.
running.
I'll be having a heart attack on the sidewalk. Jeez.
I know. I said you see a snake in the grass and you run fast the other way, like they're really gonna chase you. But I think that's just like the women too. With as far as prayer goes, they really pray for the families, their children, grandchildren. So they're the ones that really keep that prayer going too in the Tiwahes too. So it's a huge responsibility to be a woman and um I think with the Ishinanti too, how you should be, teaching those values, but a lot of times they're told, those values, what to carry on and how to carry yourself. But you always have to remember that you represent your tiwahe and the values and teachings. I always tell my students, try to do it with honor, try to represent your tiwahe in a good way, because I said a lot of times in Lakota, if you misbehave or you do something that you're not supposed to do, they always say that, "Tuahe tashiahe," who raised that person? I said, because it reflects back on your teachings and your family. So I said, always try to do things in an honorable way. I said, so um, don't be shita and don't be shita and don't be wa'ahoya. All those things. I said, those negative characteristics. I said, try to work on those and try to, raise your families in a good way. I said, even the turtle amulet and the salamander and the lizard. I said, well, you put your check by in there. I said, for safekeeping. And I said, Anta, when I do beadwork, I said, I must sit there all hunchback. I said, I get chewy staka and chewy miasms. I said, that's why they had cradle boards at, to keep your spine straight. We don't do that anymore. So Anta, we have poor posture and everything. I said, sit up straight.
Right around, sit up straight.
I know. Sit up straight. Quit hunching over.
There's so much, I think there's so much to motherhood. There's so much to fatherhood. I I think even in my own, like my own teachings, like I didn't have a lot of children. I have two, and then I'm gifted with three granddaughters. And will I have more than that? I don't know. But I really believe that, my role, I have a responsibility to, because I'm their grandmother, that I have to be the one that's like straightening things out and trying to teach them and explain things to them. And like I said, my mother taught me to be a mother, and she's also teaching me how to be a grandmother. And so, watching how she handled all her grandchildren, sometimes her grandchildren did no wrong. Perfect.
Uh-huh.
No matter how, chewing you out for getting after her grandkids. But she also was the one, and they say that like you're oftentimes like we learn compassion and love, true love from our grandmothers.
Mm-hmm.
And they love us unconditionally, no matter what. Right. No matter what we do, like they still try to be supportive and still try to be there and help you. And so that's how I try to be with I want to be with my granddaughters and grandsons if I get them too. But just try to be real supportive and helpful, like we don't help each other. And I was saying that at the very beginning, like when that time comes, there should be people, the male relative should be getting together to gather to help build homes.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yes.
that takes away the dependency of housing and tribal
Mm-hmm.
government, like if we know how to just do that ourselves, like what type of wood is the best to use. Some
Mm-hmm.
people say don't use pine because pine is a softwood. You
Mm-hmm.
have to find hardwood. So where do you find hardwood at?
Mm-hmm.
And all the different ways, like Red Cloud, what is it, Enterprise? I can't remember what they're called over there, but they're building those dome houses, just
Mm-hmm.
things like that. Like we need to find ways to, if we, I don't know, that maybe this is a judgment statement. Like if we're going to say we're Lakota, we should act like we're Lakota.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And we should do those things instead of being dependent and I don't know, like I understand treaty rights and I understand those things, but I just see the dependency and like
Mhm.
and the dependency is very harmful for us.
Mhm.
And so we've just given up how to take care of ourselves, or we just gave that over there to the government, and now we sit there and say, take care of us then.
Mhm.
That's very dehumanizing.
Mhm.
So then just trying to be Lakota, just live on your land, just go live on your land and build whatever you want to build.
Yes.
And then I'll get into tribal council next. They'll be over there saying, nope, we leased that land to that Washichu. Get out of
I know.
here.
Yeah. I thought they get all those parcels of land and do whatever they want. Yet, as landowners, I thought we have to jump through hoops and red tape, and I thought they run their cattle through our land, don't even lease it, and nothing being done to them. I said, okay, if that was you that did that, they would have probably chased your cows and horses out to the roads. I said, I
I
have done
know.
the horses and I have done the cow. I have herds of cows.
I gotta go butcher one right
I
now.
know, right? Oh, what I was gonna mention too, as Tiwahes and families too, a long time ago, and I know families still do that today. Is the oldest, the firstborn Kakoja, the grandma and grandpa usually take that firstborn, and then they basically raise that firstborn, and so they kind of pass on the teaching so that that oldest can pass that on to their siblings too if they need to. So they basically raised the oldest one, and in families the oldest one was kind of really being honored in that way because they're the ones that in the future are probably going to be the um, protector of the culture and the values and the language. So I know that families still do that in our area. I don't know about other areas, but that's one thing that. But then the other negative part of that is a lot of grandparents are today are raising their grandchildren because of addictions. You know what I mean? And then they're raising like a lot of grandchildren, and so that kind of gets overwhelming in a sense. So I guess you just have to look at the what are the negatives and what are the positives, and like you said, and I always tell my students that too. We probably lost a lot, but I said we also carried a lot of these teachings and these ceremonies up to today. To us and then to them. As I always tell them, you're the future generation, so you have to learn all these as much as you can, and then you can pass these on to your children and your grandchildren. So each semester, I'm hoping that when I get done, that hopefully I made an impact or some kind of good positive teaching and guidance for them. At sometimes I iopra them like my own iopra them and waho kung them all kinds of ways. But I always tell them I have high expectations of you. Oh, maybe you don't, but I said I do. I really have high expectations. I expect you to do a lot of the hard work. Not just gonna let you slide.
Because we're related, right? Like we're all that interdependency. So there's dependency and then there's interdependency, which is a positive thing in which you are all self what do you call it? Like you're helping each other, but you're being self-determined in your own sense. So like we're not dependent on each other, we're helping each other. So dependency is when I just sit here and expect you to come and do everything for me,
Mhm.
or like that. And interdependence is we're doing this together. So we're
Mhm.
going to build it together and live together and all of that. And so I don't know. It's all real interesting. And I want to thank you, Carolyn,
Uh-huh.
coming and visiting and talking about this. I know oftentimes we don't give enough credit discussion to to the role, the Lakota roles, you know, like what's the expectation and how those all come from your families um, and go forward like that. So if Lakota's gonna make it, hey, if we're gonna make it into 20 or what is 20, I don't know, what would they call it? Like we call this 2025. So are we gonna make it to 2125? Is that what we'd call it?
Mhm, I think.
2125. Hey, if we're gonna
Yeah.
make it there, how are we gonna make it there? You know, like what is we each all have individual work, whether you're living on the reservation or off the reservation. Um, you know, we all have work to do to ensure that our grandchildren, great grandchildren will be understand being Lakota in that far forward future.
No.
If that makes any sense.
Oh, Pilamaya, and wish all the Inas and Twins and Uchis a happy Mother's Day.
All right, so that's it for Doksha Hour. We'll see you guys next week. I think maybe Tony Handboy will be joining us and we will be having a conversation about all kinds of things.